Hey, thanks for watching this video. Before I dive into this story, I'd really appreciate it if you could support me with a subscription and a like. It helps me grow, and I truly value it. Alright, let's get going. I saw the man who shattered my world today, and his fading glory lit a fire in me. On a crowded Chicago street, I spotted Miles, the guy who preyed on my ex's vulnerability. His once proud hair is gone, his arrogance worn thin at 27. 3 years ago, he tore apart my future with Clara, the love I thought I'd marry. Her schizoaffective disorder made her fragile, and he exploited it, luring her into a drunken mistake. She was manic, unmedicated, and he knew it. Our love crumbled in the aftermath, her guilt and my rage too much to bear. Seeing him now, balding and broken, feels like justice. I'm with Elena, building a new life, but the past still haunts me. I searched for Clara and found her thriving, teaching art in Portland. Miles, though, is spiraling, arrested, alone, a shadow of himself. I confronted him one cold night, and his guilt flickered through the cigarette smoke. I walked away, lighter, free. Clara reached out, a kind note tying up loose ends. Miles vanished, chasing ghosts in another city. In Chicago's relentless pulse, I found love again with Elena. We're engaged now, planning a future under the city's lights. The past shaped me, but it doesn't own me. My story isn't over, it's just beginning. 3 years ago, Miles had been the catalyst for the end of my relationship with Clara, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. Back then, he was all charisma and sharp edges, the kind of guy who wore leather jackets unironically and played bass in a pretentious indie band that never made it past local dive bars. His hair was his pride, long, dark, and perpetually tousled, the kind that made people notice him. I'd been with Clara for nearly 4 years, and we were as serious as it gets. We'd rented a cramped apartment in Wicker Park, spent late nights mapping out our future, marriage after grad school, a house in the suburbs, 2 kids named Oliver and June. We'd even picked out rings, simple bands we'd found in a vintage shop on Division Street. I loved her with every fiber of my being, even when her schizoaffective disorder made life unpredictable. She wasn't diagnosed until a year into our relationship, but I learned to navigate her episodes, to hold her hand through the storms of mania and psychosis. I thought we were unbreakable. Then Miles entered the picture. He was a temp at the art gallery where Clara worked, a gig she adored for its quiet creativity. He was only there for a month, but that was long enough. From the moment I met him, I knew he was trouble. He had this smug, predatory vibe, like he was always sizing people up. He'd smirk when I talked about my grad school applications, make snide comments about my safe career path and data analysis. Worse, he knew about Clara's condition. Everyone at the gallery did. She was open about it, and I'd had countless conversations with her coworkers to make sure they understood what to watch for during her episodes. But Miles didn't care. He saw an opportunity, and he took it. Clara had been struggling that spring. Unbeknownst to me, she'd stopped taking her meds for nearly 3 weeks, a decision she later said she couldn't fully explain. Her manic episodes were like wildfires, unpredictable, consuming, and impossible to control. She'd swing between euphoria and paranoia, her thoughts racing so fast she could barely sleep. I was working long hours at an internship, trying to keep our finances afloat, so I didn't notice the signs as quickly as I should have. Miles, though, was there every day, flirting shamelessly, inviting her to after-work drinks with the gallery crew. I told Clara I wasn't comfortable with her spending time alone with him. She'd laugh it off, call me paranoid, but I could see the way he looked at her, like she was a puzzle he wanted to crack. One night, after knowing her for just 4 weeks, Miles took her to a bar in Logan Square. Clara was already spiraling, her judgment clouded by mania and vodka. He got her drunk, and they ended up at his place. She told me months later, after we'd broken up, that she barely remembered the night, that she felt manipulated and used. She said Miles had known she was vulnerable, had seen her unraveling, and still pushed her into something she'd never have done in her right mind. The guilt crushed her. She quit her job at the gallery, a place she'd once called her sanctuary, because seeing him every day made her skin crawl. Our relationship unraveled in the aftermath. Clara's shame and my anger built walls between us, and by the end of that summer, we were done. Seeing Miles today, though, was like watching the universe deliver a quiet, poetic justice. His bald spot wasn't just a physical flaw, it was a symbol of his fading charm, his unraveling bravado. He looked tired, smaller somehow, like life had chipped away at the arrogance he'd once worn like armor. Elena squeezed my hand as we passed him, her silent way of saying she understood. I didn't say anything to him, didn't need to. The sight of him, diminished and alone, was enough. I'm not proud of the satisfaction I felt. I'm not the kind of person who revels in someone else's misfortune, especially over something as uncontrollable as hair loss. But Miles wasn't just some guy who happened to cross paths with my ex. He was a predator who exploited Clara's illness, who saw her vulnerability as an invitation. Knowing that she didn't stay with him, that he didn't get to keep her, added a layer of vindication to the moment. It wasn't about wanting Clara back. I've moved on, and Elena is the kind of partner I never thought I'd find. It was about seeing someone who'd caused so much pain get a taste of life's indifference. The rest of the day, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Elena and I grabbed coffee at a little shop in the Loop, and we laughed about the absurdity of it all, how a random encounter could feel so significant, how a bald spot could carry so much meaning. I don't believe in karma, not really, but today felt like the closest thing to it. Miles had tried to take something from me, but he'd ended up with nothing. And I was walking hand in hand with someone who loves me, in a city that keeps moving forward, just like I have. As we strolled along the Chicago River that evening, the city lights reflecting on the water, I thought about Clara. I hope she's found peace, wherever she is. I hope she's surrounded by people who protect her, who see her strength and her struggles and love her for both. And as for Miles, I don't wish him ill, not really. But I won't lie, seeing him today, stripped of his old swagger, felt like a small, satisfying chapter closing. Life has a way of balancing things out, even if it takes its time. That night, as Elena and I sat in our apartment in Lakeview, the encounter lingered in my mind. Our place was small but cozy, filled with mismatched furniture and bookshelves that sagged under the weight of our shared interests. Elena was curled up on the couch, sketching in her notebook. She's an illustrator, and her work is all bold lines and vibrant colors, a reflection of her quiet intensity. I was pretending to read, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Miles, to Clara, to the strange symmetry of today's moment. Elena noticed my distraction and set her pencil down. "You're still thinking about him, aren't you?" she asked, her voice gentle but direct. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's not just him. It's everything. Seeing him brought it all back. Clara, the breakup, how it all fell apart so fast." I paused, searching for the right words. "I don't miss her, not like that. But I hate how much he got away with." Elena nodded, her dark eyes steady. "You don't have to feel guilty for being happy he's not thriving. He hurt you. He hurt her. That's not nothing." She reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "But you're here now. You're not that guy anymore." She was right. The version of me who loved Clara was younger, more naive, carrying the weight of a future that never came to be. I'd spent years rebuilding myself, piece by piece, through late nights studying for my master's, through therapy sessions that taught me how to let go of anger, through meeting Elena and learning what it meant to love without fear. But seeing Miles had stirred something old, a remnant of that pain I thought I'd buried. The next morning, I woke up with a strange urge to dig deeper. Maybe it was the closure I felt seeing Miles. Or maybe it was curiosity about what had become of Clara. I hadn't looked her up in years. After our breakup, I'd blocked her on social media, not out of spite but because I needed space to heal. But now, with the past suddenly so present, I wanted to know if she was okay. I didn't expect to reconnect, didn't want to. I just needed to know she'd found her footing. I opened my laptop and hesitated before typing her name into a search engine. Clara's online presence was sparse, but I found a professional profile linked to a small art studio in Portland. She was teaching workshops, focusing on mixed media projects for people with mental health challenges. The bio mentioned her own journey with schizoaffective disorder, how art had been her lifeline. There was a photo of her, smiling softly, her hair dyed a vibrant blue. She looked steady. Not the Clara I'd known, who'd been caught in the chaos of her illness, but someone who'd carved out a space for herself. I closed the tab, feeling a quiet relief. She was okay. That was enough. But the search didn't end there. My curiosity shifted to Miles. I don't know what compelled me to look him up. Maybe I wanted to see if his downfall was as complete as it seemed on that street corner. His social media was public, a mess of self-aggrandizing posts and grainy photos from gigs that looked like they drew crowds of 10. His band had fizzled out, replaced by solo acoustic sets at open mics. There were vague rants about fake friends and the industry, but nothing concrete. Then I found a local news article from a year ago, buried in the search results. It was about a bar fight in Pilsen, where Miles had been arrested for throwing a bottle at a bartender. The charges were dropped, but the article painted a picture of a guy spiraling, drunk, angry, lashing out at the world. I didn't feel joy reading it, not like I had seen him yesterday. Instead, I felt a pang of something like pity. He'd always been his own worst enemy, and it seemed like nothing had changed. Over the next few weeks, life settled back into its rhythm. I was busy with work, analyzing data for a renewable energy startup, a job that challenged me and made me feel like I was contributing to something bigger. Elena was preparing for an art show, her first solo exhibition, and our apartment was littered with canvas scraps and paint tubes. We spent evenings cooking together, experimenting with recipes we found online, laughing when our attempts at homemade pasta turned into gluey clumps. The encounter with Miles faded into the background, a footnote in a story I was no longer writing. But the past has a way of creeping back. One Saturday, Elena and I were at a farmer's market in Andersonville, browsing stalls of fresh produce and handmade jewelry, when I saw someone who made my heart skip. It wasn't Miles this time, it was Clara. She was standing by a booth selling ceramics, her blue hair catching the sunlight. She was alone, flipping through a notebook, her expression calm but focused. For a moment I froze, unsure whether to approach her or slip away. Elena noticed my hesitation and followed my gaze. "Is that?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Clara." Elena studied me, her expression unreadable. "Do you want to talk to her?" I didn't know. Part of me wanted to walk over, to say something kind, to acknowledge the years we'd shared and the pain we'd both endured. But another part of me, the part that had spent years healing, knew that some chapters are better left closed. Clara looked content, like she'd found a version of herself that didn't need me. And I had Elena, a life that felt full and forward-moving. In the end, I shook my head. "No," I said. "She's okay. That's all I need to know." Elena slipped her arm through mine, and we walked away, blending into the crowd. The market buzzed around us, alive with the hum of conversation and the scent of fresh bread. I felt a strange peace settle over me, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. The past wasn't gone, it never would be, but it no longer held me hostage. That night, as Elena and I sat on our balcony overlooking the city, I thought about how far I'd come. The pain of losing Clara, the betrayal of Miles, the years of rebuilding, they'd shaped me, but they didn't define me. I was more than the sum of my scars. I was the guy who'd learned to love again, who'd found a partner in Elena, who'd built a life in a city that never stopped moving. And as the skyline glittered against the night sky, I realized something. Closure isn't about revenge or redemption. It's about letting go of the weight you've carried, about trusting that life will find its own balance. Miles was out there somewhere, probably still chasing the spotlight, still running from his own flaws. Clara was building a new life, one brushstroke at a time. And me? I was right where I needed to be, with Elena's hand in mine, the city stretching out before us like a promise. The past had done its damage, but it had also taught me resilience, forgiveness, and the kind of love that doesn't break. That was enough. More than enough. The weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of life in Chicago carried us forward. Elena's art show was a success, with her vibrant illustrations drawing a crowd that spilled out onto the street. I stood by her side, proud and a little awestruck, as she answered questions about her work with a confidence I'd always admired. My job at the startup grew more demanding, but it was the good kind of challenge, the kind that made me excited to get up in the morning. We started talking about the future, not in the desperate, all-or-nothing way I had with Clara, but in a grounded, hopeful way. A bigger apartment, maybe. A trip to Europe. A dog, if we could agree on a breed. But the past wasn't done with me yet. One chilly November evening, I was walking home from the train, my breath visible in the crisp air, when I saw Miles again. This time, it wasn't a fleeting glimpse on a busy street. He was sitting on a bench outside a dive bar in Uptown, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, a cigarette dangling from his lips. He looked worse than before, gaunt, unshaven, his eyes hollow. For a moment, I considered crossing the street, avoiding him altogether. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the pity I'd felt reading about his arrest, Or maybe it was the closure I'd found at the farmer's market. Whatever it was, I walked over and stood in front of him. He looked up, squinting through the smoke. It took him a second to recognize me, but when he did, his expression shifted, part surprise, part defiance. "Well, shit," he said, his voice rough. "Didn't expect to see you." "Same," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "How's it going?" He laughed, a bitter sound. "How's it look like it's going?" He gestured vaguely at himself, at the bar behind him. "Not exactly living the dream." I nodded, unsure what to say. Part of me wanted to confront him, to lay out every way he'd hurt Clara, hurt me. But standing there, looking at him, I realized it wouldn't change anything. He was already paying his own price, whether he knew it or not. Instead, I said, "I saw Clara a while back. She's doing okay. Teaching art in Portland." Miles' expression flickered, something like guilt passing over his face. "Good for her," he muttered, staring at the ground. She didn't deserve what happened." "No," I said quietly. "She didn't." We stood there for a moment, the silence heavy between us. Then I turned to leave. "Take care, Miles," I said, not because I meant it, but because it felt like the right way to end it. "Yeah," he called after me, his voice barely audible. "You too." I walked away, the cold air stinging my face, and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was close. I'd spent years hating Miles, blaming him for the wreckage of my past. But hate is heavy, and I was tired of carrying it. Letting go didn't mean excusing what he'd done, it meant refusing to let it define me anymore. When I got home, Elena was waiting, a pot of soup simmering on the stove. She took one look at me and knew something had happened. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, pulling her into a hug. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." And I was. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, not just from Miles or Clara, or the pain of the past, but from the need to prove anything to anyone. I had Elena, a city I loved, a life that was mine. The past had shaped me, but it didn't own me. And as I sat down to dinner with the woman who'd become my home, I knew that whatever came next, I was ready for it. The months that followed were some of the best of my life. Elena and I moved into a bigger apartment in Ravenswood, a sunny two-bedroom with a view of the L tracks. We adopted a scruffy terrier mix named Milo, who chewed our shoes but made us laugh every day. Work was fulfilling, Elena's career was soaring, and we started planning that trip to Europe, Paris, maybe, or Barcelona. The past didn't vanish, but it became a distant echo, like a song you can barely remember the lyrics to. One day, out of the blue, I got an email from Clara. It was short, polite, a thank you for something I'd done years ago, helped her get a scholarship for an art program, back when we were together. She mentioned she was happy, that she'd found a community in Portland, that she was managing her illness better than ever. She didn't ask for anything, didn't mention Miles or our breakup. It was just a small, kind gesture, a bridge between who we'd been and who we were now. I showed the email to Elena, and she smiled. "That's nice," she said. "It's like the universe tying up loose ends." And it was. I wrote back, a brief reply wishing her well, and that was it. No drama, no lingering what-ifs. Just two people who'd once loved each other, acknowledging that they'd both moved on. As for Miles, I never saw him again. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he'd left Chicago, maybe moved to Milwaukee or Minneapolis, chasing another gig, another chance to be someone. I didn't care enough to find out. He was a footnote now, a reminder that the people who hurt you don't get to write your story. Life in Chicago rolled on, vibrant and relentless. Elena and I got engaged on a snowy night in Millennium Park, under the glow of the bean. We didn't pick out rings or plan a wedding date, we just promised to keep building a life together, one day at a time. Milo barked his approval, and we laughed until our faces hurt. Looking back, I realized that seeing Miles that day on Michigan Avenue wasn't just about his bald spot or his faded charm. It was about seeing how far I'd come, how much I'd grown. The pain of the past had forged me, but it hadn't broken me. I'd found love, purpose, a city that felt like home. And in the end, that was the real victory, not Miles' downfall, but my own rise. The Chicago skyline still takes my breath away, especially at night, when the lights dance on the river. It's a reminder that life keeps moving, that every scar tells a story, but it's the future that writes the ending. And mine, I know now, is going to be a good one.